Today I have Darren. I had to think about who I'm sitting next to today. It's one of those kind of days, everybody. But today we have Darren on the scene today, and as you guys know, he's been on a few podcasts with us. He's our social media specialist, and we have some really hot topics to talk about today, Darren.
Yes, we do.
In our production, in a little bit of our production meeting, we were kind of going through them. It's like, some of these things are going to be controversial. So I think to start off, we go with the easiest ones and kind of work our way back. Maybe. But so recently today, just right before we actually came on, the CDC has changed their guidelines again for people who are vaccinated. As you guys know, that they were saying that people who were vaccinated did not need to wear masks indoors, and they recently just changed that back to saying that now they recommend you wear masks indoors. Like, so you have, I don't know, you was on the show last week. You have not been vaccinated.
I am not vaccinated.
Okay. All right, but you still wear your mask and everything, right?
Sometimes,
right?
When required.
well, the CDC has just, and Ryan's over there just shaking his head like, no, but the CDC has just come back out today and stated that even those who are vaccinated now need to wear a mask. So we just want to start off there, kind of throw our prayers out to everybody who's going through COVID or fighting COVID or dealing with it or have lost anybody from COVID within the last year. Our prayers are with you guys, and all I'm going to say as far as COVID before we just kind of move on is take care of yourself. Like, for real, take care of yourself. Wash your hands, wear your mask, and make sure the people around you are doing what they need to do.
Absolutely. No, for absolutely.
No. So the next topic, though, is one that is a little more sticky. So I read an article this morning that was sent to me by Ari. And it talked about the rise of the KKK, and not talking about the rise of the KKK back in the 1960s or the 20s or the 40s. It's talking about the rise of the KKK like today. And I think I gave you a copy of the same article I had read, which I'm surprised we didn't bring it in here for note purposes. But
absolutely,
maybe we can get somebody to bring it in here. If we can text Sean or somebody, tell him bring it in. But it talked about a case in Palatka where there was a sergeant at the detention center, the prison center. And he was literally, I guess something happened. He was blowing smoke in the inmates' faces. They was transitioning him in. Inmate told him to stop blowing smoke. He kept doing it. They got into a fight, and later on found out that sergeant actually was a KKK member, and had plotted to figure out a way to kill the black guy. The black guy was only in prison for like a year, but they had plotted to kill him and to bury his body over somebody else's casket or something like that. But I thought we were past that, man.
Yeah, I mean, from the article, it was crazy. They celebrated after it happened and everything, and they said it was a successful murder.
But not even knowing that the FBI was internal. FBI was a part of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, so what does that say for us as a society? Because most of us, I mean, you're younger than I am. Most of us don't picture the KKK as being a threat anymore.
Not so much, I think. And I mean, there's a lot of people that speak on it. How they kind of just dressed in new uniforms.
Right.
You know, they can't wear the same uniforms that, all white uniform. It's pretty obvious now today. But they might be like your local doctor, your police officer, your lawyer, whoever it may be. Which they have the right to be, within
judge.
Your judge, yeah, exactly. Whatever official, and they have the right to be so. I mean, if that's what they believe, you have freedom of speech, you have freedom to assemble, and all types of things, But a lot of the ideology probably is not so positive, But you really can't really do much about it except when it's bringing harm to someone else. So I feel like that's when they should be able to step in and kind of do something about it.
But my thing is that as a country, and we're dealing with this, I think now, and we're dealing with this whole debate about racism. Does it exist? Our black people are doing too much. You deal with our social media. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, you guys are basically what the saying says is you guys are doing too much." There's no such thing as racism. There's no such thing as voter suppression. So when we have incidents like this and we read articles like this, and this is not something that's old. This is something that just recently happened. you served in the military, right?
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I find interesting is I love when people say, like, just like I served for, I mean, when this whole Colin Kaepernick issue came up, there were people who were in the military saying, yeah, just like I served for him to be able to stand, I serve for him to be able to take a knee if he wants to, right? How do people feel, or how do you feel, per se, because you were in the military, when a part of your argument or a part of your legacy now becomes that just like I serve for a person to not be racist and to not want to hang somebody on a cross, I serve for a person to. It does, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't want to say completely, right? But they should, like you said earlier, they should have the right to assemble. They have the right to freedom of speech. I'm not saying they have the right to kill a person.
Not at all. Yeah,
but I'm just saying that that's something within our Constitution that does give them. It gives them the right to assemble. It gives them the right to come together and to protest or whatever they call it.
Yeah, as long as you're not bringing no harm to nobody else in the sense of like physical harm, then I feel like, I mean, I get it, like we live in a society where, words do hurt. I get it, I know we used to get told sticks and stones may break our bones, but words never hurt us. But now with mental health, we know, that words actually do hurt, and especially when they're somebody close to you. But I feel like some of the things that we consider racism might be a little I think we just view it differently,
right?
And I think the definition, the etymology of it isn't broke down properly. So I feel like if we broke down the word and the etymology of it, then it would be like, okay, I get it. It's more institutional than it is somebody calling you N-word,
right?
That's just emotionalism. You might be a bigot, but I don't think you're racist in a sense, because that doesn't do anything to your social status. It doesn't take money out your pocket. It doesn't say what school you can go to just because you get called. I can still go to the same school as you. It doesn't really matter. But whenever you take away somebody's ability to go to a certain school, receive resources, housing, and stuff like that, then I feel like that's the sense of institutional, like the racism side of things.
Yeah, and I think that makes a difference simply because we got papers being thrown at us today and everything. But no, definitely because of the fact that when we talk about people who are previously incarcerated, a lot of people who are previously incarcerated don't qualify for housing assistance when they come out. They don't qualify for like food stamps when they come out. They can't even get things like assistance. So if they want to go to college and better themselves, they can't even get financial aid on certain cases to even go to college. So that's in your way of thinking or your definition, that's what racism is, when it affects the institution, or when a person can a person can be. No, I'm trying to find the right words. A person could be racist by use of the institutions.
Yeah, like through your color, you're being like basically things are getting taken away, resources are being taken away because of your color. That's when it becomes a racist thing, I believe. Yeah, that's just my opinion, because I believe it's more institutional. Yeah. Even with COVID, I mean, I think there should be more tests done and more studies done, because even with your example is people coming out of prison that can't receive certain housing. Now, if we do like studies showing that, Asian men, when they get out of prison, they can receive housing, but Hispanics can't as much, then that would show the racist intent of the system. But if all people that come out of prison are not getting certain housing, then I don't believe that would be racism. That would be more so classism, because you're the lower class, so they don't assume that you would be worthy of those resources.
So I mean, just speaking from your perspective, from your generation, do you feel like are you surprised that this is still something we're going through in 2021?
Nah, not really. I mean, I think even some of our greatest freedom fighters and activists and people in general, just worldwide, a lot of them were just like not even 100 years ago. So it's like So I don't expect it to be such a fast turnaround if it's been centuries on centuries of creating the structure and kind of having it together. I think it takes just as long to break down something as it does to build it up. So if it took 100 years to build it, I'm assuming it'll take 200 years to break it down, because you got to break down the mental side and the physical side of it all. And there's other spiritual aspects that you can get into as well. So.
And I would have to say, for me, when I read the article, what really captivated me this morning about it was how recent it was, but not only how recent it was, like how close to home it was, because both of us are Florida
from
boys.
Florida. I know, when I read Palatka, I was like, wow,
both
really?
of us are Florida boys.
I was
and yeah, and I know Lake Butler well. I know Lake Butler well, and I also know I know Lake Butler well, but I also know this area, Palatka, and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And it's just interesting to me.
Drove through it, been there. Yeah. I was like, Palatka.
Yeah, and it's just, but it's home, right?
It's home.
And it's the places that we don't really think about and we don't really see them at. It's the places where we assume that. And it's crazy because the places I think I'm going to go and run into issues, I don't.
Never happen.
And the places that I think I know about and I think that, like, these are going to be the places that I can deal with are the places that I seem to have the most issues in. So that's really interesting. But, I mean, it's funny because when people come at us on Facebook and say racism doesn't exist, I mean, it ended up being an FBI investigation, so it didn't end up happening to the guy. But, I mean, the blessed part about it is that, like, they're still out here plotting to kill. And one of the leaders even said that, you know, like, this is our solemn oath. Who cares what the consequences are? Mm-hmm. So it kind of leads us to the last but the longest topic. Is the January 6th right? Mm-hmm. Just to bring everybody up to date on what happened on January 6th, in case you don't know, January 6th is the day that the federal government comes together and they certify the election results. We know that based upon all the records, President Biden won the election. So it's usually like a process they go through and they certify the election results and kind of go on, right?
Yep.
About that day. They start around 2, it's over by 4. This year was very different because protesters decided that they didn't want to accept or believe the reaction or the results of the election, so they rioted the Capitol. Stormed the Capitol. So they, Nancy Pelosi, who's the Speaker of the House, had been working with Republicans to try to create an independent investigation or independent committee, which wouldn't have been Democrats or Republicans. It's just an outside committee to go and investigate the details of the day, finally to get us some truth, kind of like what they did in 9/11. Passed the House. Only 35 Republicans voted for it in the House, but it passed the House, and it got to the Senate, and the Republicans killed it in the Senate because they felt like there was no reason to investigate it. I find it interesting that people who, the night of and the days after, were all on the news saying, like, this is an attack on our democracy, this is wrong. These people were not these people were not like some kind of form of liberalists. Like, they were really terrorists, domestic terrorists. And now all of a sudden some of those same people have backtracked and said, no, these were good people, they just were misunderstood for why they were there.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, what do you think about that, though? I mean, to go from, you've seen the videos. We watched the videos today, and I think we got a picture of some of the protests up now. Was that peaceful protesters?
I would definitely not say peaceful protesters. And I think it goes back to it was a famous doctor. He spoke on the psychology of it. Basically, just the fact that when one person does something, assuming a white person, there can be some science linked to it in the sense of like mental impairment, disturbance, having a bad day. But when a black person or a brown person does it, then it's more so like it's a pathology in the sense that it's been like, it's a history. They have a history of these things instead of it just being weighed on the same scale.
Yeah, but the thing that drives me up the wall about it is that I don't think any decent person can sit around and say that these people who we're showing in pictures above us were peaceful protesters. And I started my morning off this morning at 9 a.m. listening to, because they had the first committee hearing was today, and the committee hearing they had was 4 police officers, and one of those police officers was a part of a video that has become like very famous when it comes to this. Is a police officer, his head being pulled through a glass, and he's screaming, help me, and the people are beating him. But that police officer gave an account where people were telling him, like, listen, today you're gonna down on your knees, are you our brother, and all this kind of stuff. One of the police officers that was black, they was calling him the NIGGA word. And telling him that he was gonna die and that he didn't really care about America. One of the police officers who literally served this country was not a citizen, became a citizen. Went through the right processes. Everything that people argue about, who was supposed to be supporters of the ex-president, argue about when it comes to different things like immigration. This guy went through checked off all those boxes, and they still was, and served in the military, served 2 tours in Iraq, came back over here and served this country, as a police officer. They told him that he was that he was going to die and that he was not a citizen and all this kind of stuff and go back to your country. I mean, how do we justify and say that those are people who were passionate, loving, caring people? And one of the things that was very interesting to me is that one guy in particular said that these people thought they were Christians because they had up signs that said Jesus loves America and this Jesus, guns, and Trump, right? All these different signs, and they were actually, and then the ones who act like they like police officers, they even had a flags up saying protect the blue, right? But they was taking those same signs and beating down the blue with them. Like, would that have happened? Let's ask the big question here.
Obvious.
Would that have happened if that was a Black Lives Matter campaign?
My personal opinion, I mean, I've seen cases where black people got killed for less.
Absolutely.
So yeah, storming like government, facility.
Putting our feet on the speaker's desk wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, obviously it would have been, and I feel like even if it, allegedly, even if it was or wasn't planned, if it was planned for us to go in there, it would have ended differently.
Yeah, and even we look at, I mean, he's showing videos now, right? That's a video of Black Lives Matter, and that's a peaceful protest. On that same day of that protest, the president decided, I guess, that the president at the time decided he wanted to cross the street. And when he crossed the street, he put the military out on the street to separate or to be like Moses and split the Red Sea so he can cross the street and go in front of a church and hold up a Bible. And this is why when people don't understand, when African Americans get so upset and say that there's no injustice, that there's racism, I couldn't say a black event could have went off like that in the amount of time and the military would not have been dispatched. I mean, we look at Ferguson, and I think we showed some pictures earlier of Ferguson. I mean, when we look at Ferguson, I mean, you see it. They had right there. They had tanks out there, right? And these people were loitering the community. But it didn't take long. They had tanks out there. They had police out there in riot gear, right?
Yeah.
It was totally different. What do you think was the difference?
The obvious. Yeah.
The obvious. It's obvious to us.
I hate it. Yeah. Sometimes you hate to even look at it and be like, dang. Sometimes you want to give people hope because we're just, as humans, we like to be hopeful of each other, because we're just decent. But sometimes you just look at stuff, you're just like, yeah, I mean, that really is the obvious. There's no other way to really put it. You can't say that's not a black or white issue. But it just obviously is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, I could not imagine if Black Lives Matter or any group went there causing the chaos they caused. As much as they say about African Americans, yeah, we helped build the Capitol, but we never stormed the Capitol. You know what I'm saying? Like, and one of the things that I found interesting, one officer said that when the Black Lives Matter came to protest, they had all the resources they needed.
Exactly.
On the day of January 6th, when there was warnings about there being this, I mean, they were getting warnings throughout the day. They couldn't get any of the resources. And even when it was in the heat of the moment and they were requesting those resources, the government still told them, like, hold off, wait, we got you. And at the end of it, the president went around and said, go home. We don't want any more people to get hurt. But don't forget this moment. Don't forget it.
Yeah.
I mean, and yet when Charlottesville happened, he couldn't even stand up and say that there was something wrong with Charlottesville. He said, what did he say? He said there was good people on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
When a man ran his car through a crowd and killed people, but there was good people on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's the obvious sometimes. And I knew they grew up in the baby boomers and whoever's further back. Excuse me. They grew up in different era.
Yeah.
Like where certain things were just kind of like common, and I think now they have to adjust to like more of the millennials and Gen Z. We're more social. Like we like to be more socially engineered in the sense of in a positive manner.
Right.
So I think they're trying to adjust to it, but no parent or no adult really wants to be told by the younger people how to live life, or they've been here longer, so they feel like their way is the right way. It's always been that way. Why change it? So I think they're really just adjusting. They're just trying to adjust to, like, being, I don't want to say being decent humans, but kind of some of this stuff is just like, just being decent. You don't got to be a great or exceptional human to know that, running somebody over with a car isn't right, or one group getting treated differently, it doesn't take somebody who's extremely intelligent.
And I would say this for people who don't know about our organization. You work here, but I mean, I have been extremely fair when it came down to police shootings. I mean, I think as an organization we have been extremely fair when it came down to police shootings. And we have taken the aspect that we don't believe anything until we hear all the facts about it. And there have been some cases where it was like, yep, the officer was justified in his shooting. And there have been cases where we said, nope, the officer was not justified, right? And I've come to understand it's a policy issue, that most of these issues we're going to fix when it comes to policing and how police officers and what they're able to do is a policy. But at the same time, what worries me is that it seems like we have a system that says that we want to do things differently for one side versus the other side. We go to the example last week. One of the first people who was actually convicted and actually sentenced on one of these charges of rioting the Capitol got 8 months in prison. We got people getting way more time than that for way smaller issues. They didn't riot the Capitol. Maybe they're out there selling drugs. Maybe they're out there doing something. You know what I'm saying? But nothing that damaged nobody's life, nothing that took nobody's life. And these people are getting 8 months. But yet we got an officer, people who helped kill other people who were protesting out there with them, and killed the police officer in 8 months.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah.
You couldn't tell me a black man or black woman would go out and kill a police officer, or go out and who would kill a police officer would get 8 months in prison.
No, not even close. I mean, plenty of studies have been done showing that we always get, it's just more across the board, we get more time.
Yeah.
And regardless of what they link it to, usually it's not nothing justifiable. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. He got in trouble as a youth. He was under 18 years old. He got in trouble. So it's like, oh.
Yeah, he stole from Walmart.
Yeah.
It doesn't say on the report, but
and it's not even related to the crime that's going on. So yeah,
and that's another thing that kills me. When we think about the criminal justice system, a lot of times they try to use things that are unrelated to the crime. Like, I've seen cases where a person who was like a nonviolent offender will go to court and they'll get them on a charge that's violent, and it's totally opposite of what their whole background may show, exactly. Right? But they'll use that as justification for why the person can't be trusted or why the person's untrustworthy. And it makes no sense. Like, how does a person doesn't just elevate from being like someone who sells marijuana to next thing you know, sitting around here raping people or killing people? I mean, that's not, you know what I'm saying? Even in FBI, agents would tell you that there's a process, right? They look for certain patterns, and those patterns don't miss. But I would say that when it comes down to this, like, I am disheartened by it. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't know how you can be a person, a human being, a man, a woman, an American citizen, and not see what's going on, not see the way Congress is treating the situation, not seeing how people are playing politics with it. When at the end of the day, the reality is that every politician, every staff member that was in that building left that building without any harm. They may have had a mental harm, they may have had, some PTSD, but no physical harm was done to them. And the reason why no physical harm was done to them is because there was people like those police officers from DC, police officers from the Capitol Police, the National Guard that went in, who risked their life to protect theirs. And for those people who now have the opportunity to go out and justify or make justification of these people's sacrifice, to be able to say that it wasn't as bad as the news portrays it, or it's not worth the investigation, or this is just simple politics, shame on you.
Yeah, I agree.
Shame on you.
It's definitely disheartening. And I think America in general has to realize that too, in a sense of we always say that we're great, we're this and that. And we are, in a sense, we are a very great country, but then again, it's the things that we whenever you think you're so great that you don't need improvement, that's when it becomes a problem. Because we're not like number one in education, we're not number one in like resources or exports. We're like
the only thing we're number one in is
incarceration too.
Yeah,
number one
incarceration,
and in military weapons, like buying weapons, like that doesn't make you great. You know what I'm saying?
In the amount of guns we have on our street, there's no other country by far.
Yeah.
I think that there was an article that came out recently that said that America the amount of guns we have on our street outnumbers like the rest of the world by almost 3-1. I mean, just because you think about, I've been to other places, some countries where the police officers don't even carry guns.
All through West Europe, when I've been to several countries in West Europe, and they every time they see American, they're like, y'all are violent. They're like, yo, y'all are violent countries. Like, we got like mass stabbings here. Y'all got mass shootings every other week or so. So yeah, it's just different.
It's different.
Definitely different.
Yeah. So I would recommend to anybody who has not had a chance to watch. Obviously, all this will be on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and go back and look at it. But go back and look at the hearings that they're doing on Capitol Hill right now. Stay in touch with what's going on, because these people's voices should be heard. And I think it's really sad that as a country, the Democrats and Republicans, and not even Democrats right now, and I'm not going partisan on this, Republicans can't come to the table and say there's a real issue here that we need to look at. And I think that's important, because as a nation, politics, doing the right thing by the nation should always supersede politics, right? And we know these people meant to do us harm. They were going after to try to kill the Speaker of the House, to hang the Vice President, and they even showed a new video today that had not been released yet. The amount of things that people were saying and doing, like it as an American, for me, it tore me at my heart. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not the country I know. And even when I was in D.C. about a month and a half ago, and I stood in front of the Capitol, you could still feel it. You could still feel it, and in a certain way, you could still smell it in the air. Like something's just not right, and that's not the country we are. And like people say all the time, America is a what's the word they use? America is still in our phase of figuring ourselves out. Right? We haven't been around that long. You know what I'm saying? This is still a test that we're still trying to see if it'll work. And at the rate we're going now as a country, if we don't get it together, we're gonna prove to the rest of the world that our way of doing things doesn't really work as well as we think it does.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, I just want to remind everybody, thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for those who will watch later. If you have an opinion, I ask that you be respectful in giving your opinion. We could agree to disagree, but just make sure that you be respectful. So anything that goes on there that uses a vile language or anything like that, we're going to delete it, just so you know. But we open up the dialogue. If anybody has any difference of agreement with us, come on the show, call us. We will be more than happy to kind of talk through some of those things. Also, I want to remind everybody, as every show, that I want everybody to join me on August 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. We'll be at Tabernacle International Church. And even though it's at a church, and even though most of the people we're inviting are spiritual leaders and pastors, it's non-religious, so it doesn't have to just be people who are from the Christian background. We want to bring all faiths together and kind of talk about faith, social injustice, and voter suppression. So join us on August 13th at 6 p.m. where our host will be Apostle Fritz Musser and his beautiful wife, Pastor Lisa Musser. And we look forward to continue this dialogue, continue this conversation. And if you don't do anything else, I just ask everybody to continue to pray for our nation, from the perspective that we have kids out here who need help and leadership and guidance. And I'm proud that we have a group of people here that are passionate about that. We even have somebody who sits behind the camera, who every day he goes out and he works with kids to make sure that they have an outlet, that they can do something different, and that they have mentorship. So I want to give him a shout out too, and the group he just started, which is called First Down for the Future. First Down for the Future, and they're using football as a resource to get some of these young men's attention. So we need to continue to go out here. And also, I want to just throw this out here too. A good friend of mine, Ricky Mims, came by today. He has a group called Count Me In Group. His group does tutoring, and during COVID, they did not stop tutoring. That's the part I love so much about them. They did not stop tutoring. They kept tutoring. They just switched to virtual. But he's also looking for tutors to help him out, because he tutors almost every child, and he has more children now than he really has tutors. So they're looking for tutors to volunteer. So we want to continue to ask those who can support that cause as well. So if you go on our website, www.blackpush.org, or you go to our Facebook page, there'll be more information on how you can get a hold of any one of these groups there. Go on our page, join us, and we'll be back tomorrow at 3:30. And at the same time, we'll be leaving next week on August 3rd, going to Alabama to stand with our, who was that? The miners. There we go. Our miners in the strike in Alabama. So we want everybody who can support, go to AFL-CIO, and there's more information about that as well. So we'll be there next week. We thank you guys for tuning in today. We thank you guys for watching this video. And I'll leave you with this. Until we can come together as a nation and be able to talk through our differences versus yelling at each other about our differences, nothing's going to change. Have a blessed day.